All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. Who will be the Bears' next head coach? It seems as though it's been a carousel. 57 people. It's been longer than the Game of Thrones the books that you've been reading. That's how long this interview process is going to take.
Wow.
But who will the Wheel of Fortune wheel land on? For that, we discuss Believe in Bears. What's going on, everybody? I am Gabe Ramirez, along with 9-year NFL vet Clay Harbor. Clay, what's going on, man?
I'm good, man. Excited to get this process through and see who the Bears pick. You know, they're turning over a lot of stones, but the problem is I don't think they really know what they're looking for when they turn over the stones.
That's why I think
rocks.
But that's why I think that, Ryan Poles put together a plan, right? As Kevin Warren said, and he likes his plan. And I think they're really trying to aggregate a bunch of data to figure out about themselves. Also joining us from 670 score. You can hear him on Bernstein and Harris 10-2 weekdays. It is none other than Marshall Harris. Marshall, I know you're optimistic about this Bears search, right?
I'm not optimistic about the Bears search. The Bears have done nothing to prove that they know what they're doing. You know, let's do it like we do it. Truth be told, Mike McCarthy is in the driver's seat right now because if they want to hire him, they will hire him, and they won't have to wait for Ben Johnson. But they should definitely wait for Ben Johnson. But Mike McCarthy is closer to being the Bears head coach than anyone in the city wants to actually accept.
It's like the younger version of Pete Carroll, right? That people are talking about when you're talking about all the check marks on the resume. You know, it's won the Super Bowl, has been in the playoffs, has had and developed quarterbacks. So I mean, the recipe is there. Why do you guys think people are so down on a Mike McCarthy?
Because they see what he did his last time playing a division opponent in the playoffs. That was the Green Bay Packers when he got run out of his own building. That's a big data point for them. Like, oh, Mike McCarthy can get you to the playoffs, but he can't win in the playoffs because he only has one win over the last 3 seasons in his time, or 4 seasons now in his time with the Cowboys. I think that's the biggest thing. But they're too busy focused on the micro and not the macro. The macro is this: the places that he has gone as a head coach, he has won. Now, the lengths of the winning can be debated, but 3 straight 12-win seasons. If the Bears had 3 straight 12-win seasons, people would people are acting like the bar is different than what it is. And here's my question to the two of you: would you take Sean Payton as the Bears head coach? Would you take Sean Payton right now? Okay. Would you take Mike Tomlin as the Bears head coach?
I was about to turn this on you.
Would you take Mike Tomlin as the Bears head coach?
Are you saying that they all fall under or cut from the same cloth?
They're literally program builders. That cannot be disputed for any of the 3 of them. They all have Super Bowl titles, cannot be disputed. The 3 of them. Now, you could say Mike Tomlin, they all have warts too. Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. Like, think about it. The same things you're complaining about with Mike McCarthy, Mike Tomlin hasn't exhibited the ability to win in the postseason of late either. And on top of that, Sean Payton, last time I checked, they got booted in the first round. So the same things you're complaining about, it's like you don't understand where you are as an organization. Caleb Williams is the future. So my whole thing is this: Caleb over everything. Is Mike McCarthy my first choice? No. Is he my second choice? No. Is he my third choice? No. Is he my fourth choice? No. But he is my 5th choice. He's my 5th choice to coach the Bears. They can do worse.
I think it's obviously we all know it's extremely difficult to win the Super Bowl in the NFL, and getting to the playoffs right now where the Bears are at. You talk about organizational changes and culture shifts. The Bears can't go from 5-12 to Super Bowl contender. Right? Like, they have to take these steps. And we thought the step was going to be this year of getting to the playoffs. And you look at a Sean Payton, granted they got knocked out in the first round, but if you're talking about a culture shift, a change of, okay, you finally at least took your guys to the playoffs, and that's a great stepping stone for the future. I think that's what the Bears need in the present. So a guy like Mike McCarthy can come in. And I think if you're talking about, obviously, understanding the NFL, situational game management type of guy, at least he's been there before. So maybe a couple of these losses would have been wins, and maybe you might not have been the best team. Maybe you might not have been able to slay the Giants, but at least you would have been at least in the playoffs and taking your team and reach that potential. I think that's what the Bears ultimately are trying to do.
I don't think they would have made the playoffs, by the way, with Mike McCarthy as the head coach this past season. The defense just simply was not good enough. Clay, what are your thoughts?
I think they could have. I think it's good that they're getting Mike McCarthy in the building. Don't have Mike Vrabel on a Zoom interview, something similar to this, but instead of 3 people, he got about 12 in that room, and he just looked like the Brady Bunch, and then make a late push, according to Diana Rossini, whatever that means, before he signs with the Patriots. Get the man in the building. All these candidates aren't created equal. I'm sorry. Pete Carroll and Mike McCarthy aren't peers of Drew Petzing and Mike Kafka. You don't have to be equitable in this search just because, if we're going to Zoom them all, we got to Zoom one, we got to Zoom them all. No. You bring Mike Vrabel in the building, you pitch yourself to him. Obviously, odds were he was going to New England. But there was a chance that he was going to come into House Hall. Maybe you could have pitched him on something. He fell in love with Caleb Williams, fell in love with Chicago, and you have an opportunity to get one of the 2 bells of the ball that everybody says are the top coaching candidates this year. As far as Mike McCarthy, get him in the building, look him in the eye, look what his plan is. Obviously, he was a part of Aaron Rodgers' first 2 MVP seasons. He was a part of a Brett Favre resurgence. I know I'm going back here. He's 9-5 with Cooper Rush. He's got Dak Prescott to be a great regular season quarterback. I mean, if you look at not last year, but the previous 4 years, he's got like top 5 quarterback numbers.
No, he was an MVP runner-up. I hear you.
He runner-up the year Lamar won. So he is shown to develop a quarterback. The other thing I like, he runs a West Coast system. The Shanahan-McVay system is a little bit more confusing. It's a little bit more advanced than this old school Andy Reid, Mike McCarthy, Marty Mornhinweg, West Coast offense, right? This West Coast offense that Patrick Mahomes runs, so Andy Reid's old offense that I used to run when I was in Philly, is more quarterback friendly. It's not as difficult. It allows you to play free, and I think that's something that Caleb needs. Mike McCarthy has played with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, right, that can create plays. Dak Prescott can create plays. Ben Johnson is still my number 1, but what scares me is looking at Ben Johnson's system. His system is all predicated on timing, right? Getting the ball out fast here, getting the ball out fast here, getting the ball out fast here. The only quarterback he's ever won with is Jared Goff.
A veteran quarterback.
That's a veteran Jared Goff. So for me, does that system translate to Caleb Williams? Because we all know Caleb Williams loves to hold on to that football, but he is a playmaker. Mike McCarthy's system to me makes a little more sense. And obviously Ben Johnson, I think, could adapt, but the system he's running now would be something different with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think it's funny. We're talking about things, externally, right? What can people do to fix the organization? And I think we're not having the conversation internally, which we'll get to in a second. And that's, how will the brass feel about a guy like Mike McCarthy? We'll get to that in just a second. Again, you're listening to Believe in Bears, Gabe Ramirez, Clay Harbor, Marshall Harris hanging out with you guys. And, one of our best sponsors, right? Because, the odds have shifted, right? Ben Johnson's now minus money to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. Mike McCarthy sitting at plus 200, and Bet Online is where you can make both of those bets. And they continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number 1 source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, and the UFC. Bet Online is the number 1 sports betting source for your new year, from touchdowns to 3-pointers and hat tricks. Bet Online, the game starts here. Marshall, I know we got to get to Clay's, truth be told, but I am curious your thoughts, because I think about a Ben Johnson and I say, all right, he seems like the guy that could fit personality-wise with Ryan Poles, right, from what we've seen. Mike McCarthy, people talk about, maybe these guys, Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, not wanting to get with people that would challenge them. Do you view Mike McCarthy as the former or the latter in this situation, and how you think that relationship would go?
I think Mike McCarthy is very much accustomed to not being involved in personnel stuff as much and just coaching what he has on the field. You saw that in Dallas. Jerry Jones. He worked with Jerry Jones and won 12 wins or got 12 wins 3 years in a row. That tells the story for me. Number 1. Now, there are concerns. I said none of these coaches are without warts. His lack of success in the playoffs, because you could argue that Dallas had a top 5 roster in the NFL and only came away with one playoff win over his tenure there. Now, here's what I'll say about that. He tried to modernize his offense, but he is kind of stubborn in the West Coast ways that Clay was talking about. And they had a lot of issues with pre-snap penalties. Tell me if you heard that before around here. And he kind of got to a point where Dak was like, I don't want to do that. And they just started freelancing at the line of scrimmage. That concerns me a little bit because that's not what you need for a guy like Caleb Williams, who needs the coaching and the fostering. I think that maybe Ben Johnson and some of the other guys, I told you he's number 5 on my list, Mike McCarthy, can maybe put him in a bit better position, and he's more evolved, Ben Johnson, as far as going forward. I love Todd Monken. I love also Pete Carroll because he's a program builder. So I think it comes down to two things.
First of all, I'm curious. You got McCarthy 5. Who's
you ain't on my list?
I know 1, but who's
you got 4 of them?
3, 4.
Okay, sorry. It's number 1 is Ben Johnson.
You got Brian Flores on there?
Brian Flores is not on my list. No, too big of a risk. Too big a risk at this time. He may have learned his lesson from his time with Tua in Miami, but can the Bears afford to take that risk? So he's not in my top 5, mainly because of that. Going to my list, though, number 1, as I said, is going to be Ben Johnson. Number 2, Pete Carroll. Number 3, Todd Monken. Very intrigued by what he's been able to do at every level, whether it was Georgia, Baltimore. Have you checked out Baltimore's offense lately? And also Aaron Glenn is number 4, and he's really the only defensive guy that's in my top 5, and then Mike McCarthy at number 5. Aaron Glenn, I think he's got the stuff that head coaches are made of. He could be a Tomlin 2.0. He could be a Lovie Smith 2.0. And I don't say it derogatorily like everybody else is like, well, that's just Lovie Smith 2.0. Tell me something.
We all want Lovie back.
Super Bowl?
We all want Lovie back.
Did Lovie go to the Super Bowl? Did Lovie go to the Super Bowl? To win the Super Bowl, you got to get to the Super Bowl. Lovie Smith had a great run. In the season he got fired, he went 10-6. You could say he had a horrible back half of that season. But bottom line is, that's a lot more success than the majority of teams are having in the NFL. You have to start to weigh that, as Clay said, hard to win a Super Bowl. Only one team does that every year. But to be in the mix, that's the goal, to be in the mix. We're living in the Patrick Mahomes era. He's won 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. Don't take that for granted that you're just going to hire a coach and win a Super Bowl. You've got to get to Caleb development, number 1, and restructuring what goes on inside the building at House Hall. That's 1A. Those are the 2 things that matter the most.
Yeah, Clay, let me ask you a question, right? Because, sticking with the coaches train, I'd love to hear who your top 5 is as well. But Mike McCarthy, my question to you, Clay, as a former player, is the thought process of a guy like Caleb Williams, if that were to be the case, right? What is it like if a guy you admired in the NFL, right, used to be coached by a particular person? How do you respond as a player? Right. What is that connection like if maybe that coach coached some of the best people?
And to be clear, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and his relationship with Mike McCarthy, because Aaron Rodgers, that's who Caleb Williams says he emulated, number 1, his entire time growing up.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want to know, say if I was coached by tight end coach that coached Tony Gonzalez, say. And I would be like, how did Tony think about this? What was Tony doing when you get to kind of throw questions off of him as to how did this guy do things? How did he look at things? How did he read this through? How did he do this play fake? And that's because the guy that's had success and was the MVP of the National Football League multiple occasions, won a Super Bowl. So, yeah, you get to ask him questions. Oh, how did he like to do this? How did he like to do this? Or his habits, what was his routine? And you get to learn a little bit more about this person that had success and that you looked up to. So I think that's something that could be looked at there too, because that's a guy. You ask Caleb Williams, people always thought it'd be Mahomes. He always said Rodgers. That was the guy that he liked watching film of, that he liked comparing his game to. And to get Rodgers' old coach, the coach that he had the most success in with, I think would be, I think it would be fitting.
All right. So what about the rest of your top 5 for you?
Oh, yeah. So I did this last night on the Big Pro Football Show, an updated top 5. At number 5, I had Pete Carroll. I like Pete Carroll, 10 playoffs appearances in 13 seasons, 8 division titles. But Pete Carroll's just too old, Marshall. I'm sorry. The guy's 74 years old. He would be the oldest head coach in NFL history. The last offensive coordinator he hired, Shane Waldron. So I'm sorry. If he went to a ready-made team that was ready, that had a developed quarterback, then okay, I'm with you. And then the argument to that's going to be, what about Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson was playing with the Legion of Boom. Marshall Harris probably could have quarterbacked that team at first and given them time to develop, right? Yeah, Geno had a resurgence. Geno was a veteran coming back there too. So I don't know if got what it takes to develop a rookie quarterback. My number 4 was Todd Monken. I agree with Marshall. Very intriguing. You look at, I had some numbers here. His offense ranked 1st in yards, 3rd in scoring this year, while being 6th in yards and 4th in scoring last year. You say, oh, okay, he has Lamar Jackson. 2018, Tampa Bay Buccaneers led the league with 5,358 passing yards. He had Jameis Winston as his quarterback. He still led in yards.
Slang that thing.
And then he won 2 national championships, the offensive coordinator of Georgia. And he was a quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. So he's worked with young quarterbacks. And then he was a head coach before at Southern Miss.
Southern Miss, yeah.
And he won the year in 2015 in the Conference USA. So he can run a program. Monken needs more. He needs to be in-person interview too.
Yes, I agree with everything Clay said. Want to make a correction. Pete Carroll's only 73, not 74. Stop trying to age that man. Stop trying to age that man.
He will be.
I mean, we will all be 74 one day, Clay, but I'm just making sure we got the facts straight.
He would be the oldest coach in the history of the National Football League.
Let's be honest.
Since the National Football League's been around, oldest.
Does Pete Carroll act like he's 73 though? He's out here throwing the ball around. Come on, man. At 72, 2 years ago, last time he was a head coach, he was out there throwing balls to his guys in practice. Like I saw him move. I was like,
ice his shoulder the next day. You didn't see that part.
I have to ice my shoulder every day, Clay. What's good?
Okay.
Okay. But notice something. He's still in your top 5. There's a reason for that. And it goes back to twofold. Program. It's not even resume. It's just, I mean, it is resume, but it's not like you don't have to list off the stuff that he's done. You've seen him in action. He passes the eye test as well. He makes, but he's older. He is. I mean, I can't argue that. That's why he's number 2 and not number 1 on my list. If he was 5-10 years younger, he'd be number 1 on my list. Because he's worked with young quarterbacks. And as far as the Shane Waldron thing, if you know the backstory to that, he realized that some of his concepts were getting older. He wanted to modernize things. So he went to the Sean McVay tree, which seems like a smart thing to do. He just picked the wrong guy and was critical of Shane Waldron even while he was coaching for him. He was critical.
I know he was critical. And that's something the Bears didn't see. You could Google Shane Waldron. I remember Googling him
when they hired him as offensive coordinator, right?
And there's Pete Carroll saying, I think we could have done a lot more with the weapons that we had in offense, even though they had a solid year.
And I think Pete Carroll will bring that. Pete Carroll will bring a refreshing level of honesty that the Bears sorely need.
Yes.
In that vertical lineup that they have from the GM up. Ryan Poles kind of needs a guy who's been here, done that, because Ryan Poles clearly has not been there, done that, and got it all wrong. And now when you're talking about the coaches on his staff, it's going to be great coaches. Even if Ben Johnson's hired, I would implore him to hire a veteran defensive coordinator, like a Ron Rivera type, somebody who's done the job before at a high level. He can't afford to have another guy that's in a Ben Johnson category be his defensive coordinator. They've got to have veterans to lean on. Look at the staff that Harbaugh built out in LA with the Chargers. Falls under the same thing. And, I go back and I look at the guys that are up. It's not so much that I'm saying hire Mike McCarthy. I'm just saying if they end up with Mike McCarthy, I'm okay with it. I think that's something that Bears fans should be able to live with.
It's interesting. That's how I feel like I've been operating with this coaching search, where it's like there's the I hate bucket and then the I don't hate bucket, right? Because it's like for me to be like, this is who I want for the Bears. It's like I'm not in the interview rooms. I'm not talking directly to these people.
At the end of the day, it's an educated guess because they could get it wrong if they get Ben Johnson. They could get it wrong if they go with Mike McCarthy. It's an educated guess. But I think what we have to do is set the bar high when we talk about the floor. The ceiling is unknown, but the floor has to be a certain level. I think Mike McCarthy gives you a floor that you can live with as a Bears fan.
Yeah, you got to move on from certain coordinators that are
3 Flores, 2 Cliff Kingsbury. I know unpopular, 1 Ben Johnson. Just to finish off the list.
Tell me about Flores and what the plan is for the quarterback, because I think Caleb over everything is my mantra.
Flores, it's risky, but he went 24-25. He finished with 2 winning seasons as a head coach. So he can do it. He's done it before. The quarterback stuff is concerning. McVay McVay shredded him twice this year. Ben Johnson shredded him twice this year. That's all concerning. He didn't finish on a hot streak. I remember when Adam Schefter reported that Flores wanted Deshaun Watson in 2021. That's also what kind of judgment is that you wanted Deshaun Watson in 2021? Ryan,
well, several teams wanted Deshaun Watson in 2021. That's the reason he got paid so much after the trade to the Browns.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick comes out and starts talking trash, saying that he was basically what did he say? He became unrecognizable. He was a dictator. He burned a lot of bridges in Miami. What Flores, what Fitzpatrick was saying about Flores, and you got the Tua stuff. But I've been on staff.
Ryan, I just want to point out, Ryan also followed up with a tweet responding to his own tweet in which he said all that stuff and said, I think he's changed. He's gotten growth. And then his former players, the ones that came over from Miami, then they're now playing with the Vikings, have also talked about him being where he needs to be. Yeah. I just think with a young rookie quarterback in their situation, if he went to like New Orleans, okay, but you don't. I can't take the chance of him beating down Caleb Williams after Caleb Williams got physically beat down his rookie year.
And I feel like I'm not sure how those personalities match up. Flo is one of those old school disciplinarians. No BS. It's just from two different timelines. I love Flo. I thought Flo in New England was perfect. Working under Belichick, when I played there, the players Dante Hightower and Flo were inseparable. They got along. You listen to Harrison Smith talk yesterday. He's getting emotional talking about Flo. I mean, these players love this guy. Defensive players love this guy. So I don't know how he's going to react once he's got to develop a rookie quarterback, because we know what happened with Tua.
Yeah, you're listening to Believe in Bears. Gabe Ramirez, Clay Harbor, Marshall Harris talking about this Bears coaching search. And guys, we often talk about what the Bears need and who the Bears have interviewed, but we forget there's a ton of other teams out there that are doing the exact same thing. One of them in particular, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And through today's what? Thursday? What's today? Today's Wednesday. So through Wednesday morning, they've interviewed Kansas City Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo, Detroit Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, Jets former head coach Robert Saleh, and Las Vegas Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, and Ben Johnson. So, you're looking at this team, and they're still going to interview Monken, Cohen, Brian Flores, and Kellen Moore from the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think is probably going to get a head coaching job as well this cycle. When you look at that, and because we forget, right? We're talking about these guys as if they're only interviewing with the Chicago Bears.
No, I don't. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I think the reason why it's okay that they're interviewing so many people, and I don't really care about it, although some of those interviews should have been in the building. I will plant my flag there, is that if Ben Johnson is your top target, you can't do nothing until he gets eliminated from the playoffs anyway. So just do your due diligence. I'm not mad at that. I am upset or concerned is a better word, that they didn't talk to Bill Belichick when they had the chance in season. They could have just talked to him well before he takes off for North Carolina. They didn't bring Mike Vrabel in at the first chance that they could have. Even other guys like Ron Rivera, if they want to bring him in earlier. They didn't have to wait as late as they did to start this process.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the organization, it seems sloppy, but the hope is that they come out on top with the right guy. But don't you guys just feel like no matter who it is, Ben Johnson, Monken, Flores, Glenn, it just doesn't matter. Half the Chicago fan base is going to hate it, and half the fan base is going to love it, no matter who it is.
Ryan Poles has done nothing. George McCaskey has done nothing. And this is Kevin Warren's obviously first shot. But they've done nothing to instill this goodwill and blind faith in the Bears. Look at the last four coaches they've had since Lovie Smith.
Right.
Nothing. You had a flash with Matt Nagy, a flash. But that's all there's been is one flash.
There's new people though. These are new people making hires though. This isn't, you know what I mean? That's
Ryan Poles made the last hire. Stop. Ryan Poles made the last hire.
Fine.
Stop.
This is the first time. This is a new regime getting to do a search from the beginning. How about that? I get to choose my words correctly in that sense.
Okay. So,
I
have on a scale of 0 to 10, my faith in the Bears to get this right through their process is a 4. No. What's yours?
Why?
What's your number? What's your number?
But why though? If the people are available.
Gabe, what have they done? Hold on. No, Vrabel's already off the table, and maybe he was
6. He's been chairman. He's had 6 head coaching hires already. Has he got any of them right?
All right, but a 4?
A 4 is high.
A 4 is high. A 4 is me being optimistic. There's been no evidence. Okay,
No
evidence based. There's been no evidence that the Bears will get this right.
I have a better question. How many candidates, right? How many candidates that are available would be deemed, getting it right? Because if you're talking about
9 offensive coordinators last year.
I understand that. Okay, fine.
That's what we ended up with.
Okay, fine. You're not answering. Okay, answer my questions first, right? Out of all the candidates that are available, how many of them would be in the box of getting it right? How many of those people? You don't have to say their names. Just give me a number.
Say 5.
Maybe somewhere between 3 and 6.
Okay, you don't think the Bears can get none of those 6 people?
It depends on how it plays out, because
but that's what I'm saying. That's your 4. That's your 4
Look
from
at the
confidence.
offensive coordinator search last year. Look at the names they passed up. Cliff Kingsbury, Liam Cohen. There were some big times names in there of guys that actually had solid years. The Bears landed on Shane Waldron after sitting in the room with 9.
I get that.
Including Thomas Brown.
But Marshall's 4 is the equivalent of the Bears passing up all 6 of those people and then taking like Kafka. That's a 4. You know?
No. That's a 0. That's what that is. That's a 0. Clay, help him understand how numbers work.
All right, what's a 4?
So a 4 is if they end up. Let's say they end up with Here, let me a better job. Let's say the Saints get Mike McCarthy, the Raiders get Ben Johnson, Raiders or Jags get Ben Johnson, and then you're left playing musical chairs, and you just have to take.
You get Munkin.
Okay, here's why they won't. Here's why they won't get Munkin or Glenn. They curse too much. They curse both of them. Both of them.
Yeah.
They curse too much. So Munkin's not even like a realistic. That's just my guy.
Yeah.
Munkin's my guy. Aaron Glenn's my guy.
McCaskey guy.
He's not a George McCaskey. I can't see George McCaskey picking him up from the airport after he flew into O'Hare and thinking, this guy, I can relate to him.
But maybe he could be the Zach Slater to George McCaskey's Screech. Maybe they could be buddies, but they're just on 2 opposite ends of the. Like Clay, when he was younger, he was the nerd and he used to hang out with, the cool kids. That's how he got a little swag. You know what I'm saying?
Clay was 3 sports all state. That's all. That's what Clay was.
That's what Clay. Let me talk in the third person.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I get that. Gabe, I don't understand why your meatball is getting so large in your head right now.
No. You're assuming that my 4 is a 9.
0 to 10. What's your level of confidence they get this right?
Mark
0 to 10.
6.8.
6.8. Clay, what's your number?
3.5.
Yeah.
It. Then you're assuming they're assuming.
Yes. Why would you assume that they're going to get it right? There's been no evidence. Plenty of reasons to assume they're going to get it wrong.
There's too many coaches.
You had a chance to interview Jim Harbaugh last year. You stuck with Matt Eberflus.
He had no choice.
That's not true. You always have a choice.
The bosses told him we got to keep him.
Looking at the draft picks.
You walk out.
Ryan Poles has made.
He needs that job.
Drafting Velus Jones. Drafting Zach Pick. Just looking at the history of this guy's decision making.
Chase Claypool.
There is nothing that tells me this guy's going to make the right decision.
Hold on. You're not comparing apples to apples, Clay. And I hate to push back this hard, but when you're talking about a guy that Chase Claypool, you're talking about how many wide receivers were available in the moment, and then he went out and got something. That's not comparing it to having 5 or 6.
He got fleeced because he gave up a second-round pick.
Offensive coordinator choice last
year. Going to be that bad.
Not you out here defending Ryan Poles trading a second-round pick for Chase Claypool.
No, again, you guys are not doing apples to apples.
Offensive coordinator choice last year that they fired after 5-6 games. Okay, what is that? Is that not apples to apples?
I hear you're right. You're right. That's a lot of coordinators at the interview where they land on a guy like that. But you heard what Ryan Poles said. He needed a teacher. Someone that was going to teach the new guy. In his mind, that was his philosophy for getting that guy right there in that moment because he thought his team was okay. This head coach is going to be completely different. And if you guys can't see that with the big pool of 5 or 6 that you guys mentioned, that the Bears can get one of those guys.
No, get your guy. Why can't the Bears get their guy? Get the number 1 guy they want.
Right.
If they can't do that, then that's when George McCaskey gets up there in front of the media and says, well, usually they want the job. That's not how it works. And it's not a vacuum, George. You've got other teams who need a head coach, and you might have to cede some power in order to get the guy that can turn around this team.
Yeah, and I hope that they end up getting that guy. But again, we don't know who's on the top of their list, right? We can just make guesses and talk about that. But
it better be somebody in one of our top fives. You didn't give us your top five, by the way, Gabe.
It all fits right there. I'm all in the same with you guys. I do like Mike McCarthy in my top five. I do.
How high up do you have him?
McCarthy's probably like 3.
Okay, who's in front of him?
I got Aaron Glenn up there.
Okay.
I don't have this is my guy. This is who I want for the Bears coach. I don't have that because I think that's I think there's, like I said, there's a hate and then a don't hate. I have if you want my 5 and my hate, not don't hate. Yeah, I don't hate Pete Carroll. I don't hate Mike McCarthy. I don't hate Aaron Glenn. I don't hate Ben Johnson, and I don't hate Tom Munkin. Those are my 5. Yeah,
you're following my 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you guys.
But what's the what is your expectation in terms of the reality that they get Aaron Glenn or Todd Munkin, that they're actual candidates that they would hire based on what you know about George McCaskey and his squeaky clean image?
I would hope, right? And I would hope, just like you guys know this very much in our space with who we are, I would hope that if Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren sit in a room with Aaron Glenn and realize he's the guy, that they're going to go ahead and talk to Mr. McCaskey and say, hey, I understand whatever it is you're thinking, but this is our guy. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think. So I have confidence that they'll be able to get one of those 5 guys. I'm confident in that. Shit, I hope so. You know,
I don't think they'll get their guy. I think they'll lose out on Ben Johnson, and it'll be dominoes from there because they'll end up with what's left over. And that's you can't operate like that. And that'll be like, why didn't you interview these people, except for Ben Johnson, who can't be interviewed in person? Anybody else? Like the Mike McCarthy thing, here's why I'm uncomfortable with the Mike McCarthy thing. He has had issues with his offense of late where he needed his quarterback to go above and beyond. Kellen Moore was a big reason why Dak Prescott was able to take that leap. He wasn't there anymore. Dak regressed a little bit. I'm a little concerned that Mike McCarthy is past his prime in terms of play calling. That is my biggest concern with Mike McCarthy. Well, everything else, okay, he's had some game management issues as well in terms of late situational football. Everybody's got warts, though. So you got to pick and because Caleb is the most important thing, I know what Clay said about the West Coast offense and everything, but you got to be able to add some tweaks. You got to be able to evolve it a little bit to modernize it so defenses can't destroy you. And I just have some questions about Mike McCarthy's ability to do that. Now, overall, do I think he can beat the bad teams? Yeah, he can beat the bad teams. And that puts you in a position to be in the mix in the NFC North.
Yeah, and we'll be following this closely, man. And I'm sure there'll be updates as we continue. And hopefully you guys stick with us as we follow along and give you all the updates as well. All right. For 9-year NFL vet Clay Harbor, make sure you check him out weekdays, the Big Pro Football Show.
Put his handle out there. Let the people follow that man.
Clay Harbs 82.
Okay.
And then you want to check out Marshall Harris weekdays 10 to 2 on Bernstein and Harris on 670 The Score. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, M Harris on air.
Yeah, that's me. Not just Twitter, all platforms.
All platforms.
Come see me on Instagram.
Do you guys know my Twitter handle?
Yeah, Gabe. Yeah.
Nope.
No, it's Chicago_Gabe.
Nope. My new Twitter handle is at Gabe Ramirez. Yeah.
You changed it?
No more?
There was an underscore. There was an underscore.
So I guess
Chicago Gabe.
It was Chicago Gabe on Instagram. Twitter, you got to be a little bit more grown up. People don't want to follow Chicago_Gabe. So Gabe Ramirez was a producer on CNN forever. So he's had, since Twitter came out, he had that handle. And with all the Elon Musk stuff, he got off of Twitter.
So you got,
and he left the handle available. So
change your Instagram to match it too. Get your stuff.
You can't.
Alignment, like the Bears. Alignment. Your GM.
The difference between me, I know that. That's why I always had Chicago. The difference between me and a lot of media personalities that, like, my Instagram isn't sports at all. And so, like, when I do my sports stuff,
but Gabe Ramirez covers everything.
I understand that. I'm telling you, but my Instagram is like my B96 pop culture stuff. So that's where I do my family. That's where I do all that stuff. And then Twitter is my come follow me for sports.
I just saw you had a post with Fox 32.
Yeah, he's talking.
I'm trying to. I have to post up something. You got to know about me overall. So you get a sports, you get a family.
I'm just saying Gabe Ramirez is much more all encompassing. So if that handle is available, you go grab it.
It won't be. I wish it was. It was. It's too common. All right, fellas, make sure you follow us wherever you jump on your social medias, and just Google, because that's the new thing to do right now.
The Bears are going to hire Mike McCarthy. That's my prediction. Not the guy I want, but that's my prediction.
Well, next week, hopefully, we'll have an answer to all of this. All right, guys, we are Believing Bears. We'll holler at you guys next time. Bear down like Caleb.